We are going to learn about what's going on at the zoo lately.
The Nashville Zoo.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun one. Let's dive into some of the exhibits and some of the animals. It's come a long way. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there now, and it's cool to see the changes. I was browsing the website, saw some tiger cubs. Those are a new addition, right?
Yeah. They were born back in October, so they're like 70 pounds now. They pull down huge stalks of bamboo because it looks like it'd be fun to play with. They drag it around the exhibit, and they jump on each other. They play in the water. It's a great exhibit to go and see right now. The Sumatran tiger is just a beautiful animal. We wanted to bring animal care out front and center to the public. We wanted to show the public, this is how we care for these animals. This is what we do to make sure that they stay healthy. So we created this hospital where you can actually look into the treatment rooms and see what's going on.
Right.
Our male tiger just did his annual workup, to make sure that he was healthy and everything was good before putting him back where he belonged.
How neat is that?
It all takes place right out in front of the public.
Well, the zoo's been a great partner with us as an agency, too, on a couple of species in particular.
We do a Hellbender Head Start program. We'll go out and retrieve eggs, hatch them, and then raise them for a little while, and then re-release them back into the wild.
Right.
Just kind of give them that head start to get back into the river. I guess the last thing I'll mention is really kind of unique for Nashville. We have animal exhibits in some of the bathrooms. In the men's room, we have a bowling python snake exhibit above the urinals.
Won't you take me back to Tennessee?
The award-winning Tennessee WildCast is on the air with the latest info about hunting, fishing, boating, wildlife watching, and all things outdoors. This year, we celebrate the men and women of the TWRA responsible for 75 years of wildlife conservation. Now make welcome your host, Jason Harmon.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee WildCast. We're glad you're tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We got a fun show lined up for you today.
We sure do.
It's going to be a good one, Don.
Yeah, we are going to learn about what's going on at the zoo lately.
The Nashville Zoo.
Yeah, Mr. Jim Bartoo is here with us, and we're looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. Before we get started, you want to highlight a radio station?
Yeah, WMOD in Bolivar. We appreciate their interest in running Tennessee WildCast Extra about 8:15 every morning, Monday through Friday. So we appreciate them and our other 29 or so stations across the state that play our show.
Yeah, perfect. That's a good time slot, drive time there.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, we do appreciate our radio partners, our TV partners, those of you who are out watching, listening, following, sharing, all that fun stuff. We appreciate it very much, and so keep doing it.
All right.
Yeah. Well, Don, you mentioned this a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, we should maybe have Jim come over from the zoo. And I was like, sounds like a good idea to me. So
I had gotten an occasion to go over with a few of our commissioners and some of their colleagues from other states that do similar things to them in the other states, and talking about conservation. And they had, I think, Chairman Jimmy Granberry lined up a tour for the folks, and so I was able to go participate in that, and
awesome.
Learned a lot about what's going on at the zoo. And it had been a while since I'd been there, Jim, and I apologize for that. But
it's all right. It's fine. Yeah, you don't have to apologize. Yeah.
Anyway, it's better late than never.
That's right. Yeah, usually people follow that up with, "Well, my kids are grown now," and my response is, "You don't have to have kids to go to the zoo.
Exactly.
It's not a requirement." Just try not to. If you're going to go alone, try not to look too creepy, because we'll have security on you quick.
Make it a date night.
That's right.
Take a little woman
take some with you. Yeah. Take a friend.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, thanks for being here. Jim Bartoo, he's the marketing and public relations director, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome. And you've been there for a while now. Tell us a bit about yourself and a little bit of background.
Sure. Yeah. I've been at the zoo for 25 years now. Before that, I was at the Columbus Zoo in Columbus, Ohio for about 7 years. And prior to that, I was in Chattanooga working in TV news. So that was kind of my first foray right out of college. And TV news was great when you're a young man, but they own you 24/7.
What station down there? WRCB or no?
It was 12.
Okay.
To begin with.
WDEF, right?
DEF, right? Yeah. And then I got hired out from under from under. I'm over at 9, so I went up to 9.
okay.
Yeah, and that's where I met my wife, who was she was doing health reports over there, and she got a job up in Columbus, so I followed her up there. And,
Oh, nice.
Yeah, got out of the news business and started working at a zoo.
Got into the zoo. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. And you mentioned before we started that you had some time with Jack Hanna.
I did, yeah. Columbus is where Jack Hanna's from, so I worked with him quite a bit. He was the one that actually got me the job interview for the job that I'm in now, right? Awesome. He called up the zoo president and said, "Hey, you got to talk to this guy." Jack's from East Tennessee. I don't know if anybody knows, but he just the nicest person. So yeah, he was able to get that interview for me, and that's kind of why I'm here.
Man, that's great.
Yeah, that's cool. You got any fun, quick stories working with him? Something that stands out?
Oh man, we did for a while, I was doing staff interviews with people when they had accomplished like a milestone,
Sure.
5 years, 10 years, 20 years, this kind of stuff. And I would go and do a quick little interview with them, and then we'd show that at an all-staff meeting that we had every year. And his 20th year came up or something, so I got to interview him about that. And he was describing what life was like back when he first started to work up at the Columbus Zoo. And he said, it's kind of like prison.
Okay.
I think I just cut the rest of the interview from there and went on to somebody else, right? And just left it at that.
Yeah. That's fun. Well, that's cool. That's some pretty cool experiences working there and then making your way down here back home,
Yep.
I guess, getting closer to home.
Yeah. I'm from Chattanooga, so it was closer to home. Once you have children, your whole life kind of changes, right? And so we were in Columbus, Ohio. My wife's from St. Louis. It's 8 to 9 hours in any direction you look at for that. And when you're that young, you're burning the little free time that you have going to visit family just to have your kid visit with cousins and nephews and things like that. So it was important for us to try to get to a place where we could do that more often without having to plan huge vacations to get down there, right? A lot like living in Watertown to visit the zoo. You got to plan it for the day. Yeah.
It takes a little bit of effort. Yeah.
That's right. You got to plan your day out.
Well, that's great. Yeah. So, it's the zoo has changed a lot, and I'm learning a little history as we go here, just chatting before the show, kind of where it got started.
I know.
Like that.
I was pleased to find out Jim knows all the detail from back in Joelton, right?
Yeah. It started in 90. I think it was 90. It was either 90 or 91. And it was started as just a way to be able to bring a zoo to Nashville, which really didn't have one.
Uh-huh.
And it was on about 100 acres up near the Ashland City or up in the Joelton area. And at the same time, the Grassmere Wildlife Park started at the Grassmere property, which is where Nashville Zoo is now.
Right.
That was run by the Children's Museum, which is now the Adventure Science Center. And they ran a small little wildlife park with about a dozen indigenous animals, or animals that may have at one time
been native to Tennessee, right?
Or this landmass where it was on Earth at the time, right? Because they have like Przewalski's horses, and I'm not even quite sure the continent was formed when these animals were there. But that all that being said, everything else they had black bears, they had wolves, they had some other stuff to cougar. So. And they ran that for about 4 or 5 years, and they couldn't really do it anymore. So they handed the property back to the city. They never owned the property. The city owned the property, and it was willed to them from the two sisters that lived on the Grassmere property, and it had been in their hands for generations and generations, passed down from family member to family member.
Gotcha.
But these two sisters never married. They weren't really able to make a whole lot of money on the land. Taxes were getting more and more expensive, so they struck a deal with the city to live there tax-free. And they struck that in 1965.
Wow.
And the last sister passed away in the mid-'80s, and then the park opened about 5 years after that.
Okay.
So they closed, and then Mayor Bredesen at the time asked the Nashville Zoo up in Joelton to relocate to the Grassmere property. And we did that in 96. And then opened in 97 and started basically running the zoo from there. And there wasn't really a whole lot there. I mean, we had those dozen or so exhibits
I remember it being pretty
transferred.
sparse because
It was very. I like to tell people when I got there, which was I got there in '99, a couple years after that. I like to tell people when I got there, the best exhibit we had was the backhoe.
What species was that?
We had 8-year-old boys would drive miles and miles to just stare and watch that thing dig a hole. Yeah. We had talked about turning it into a ride and charging it, let kids, dig their own holes out there.
Hop in the bucket.
I would
See what
totally
happens.
pay $50 for that. Yeah, have my kid do that.
That's great.
It's come a long way. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there now, and it's cool to see the changes. You still have the house there, right? People can go through and
the historic home's still there that the sisters lived in, and about 90% of the stuff that's in the home is from the home itself, and it's all from the 1800s. So it is a beautiful. If you're into historic homes, this is a beautiful one to check out. Wow. And they tell you all about how this place became a zoo. So they will kind of walk you through the home. They tell you the whole history of the family. There is a smokehouse and a kitchen, which is set off from the house, which was normal at the time. You didn't want to set your house on fire, so you had a kitchen in another building. There is a cabin that was placed there some years later. It wasn't there when the sisters were there. There's a cemetery, family cemetery up there. There's a slave cemetery that we recently relocated to that area. And then there's a barn that has some animals in it, and there's some farming equipment and stuff like that you can see. But it is a tour that you can walk through the house. You can take a tour, and it's a guided tour through the home.
Oh, neat.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And still working. I mean, and it's obviously a zoo, but still have a little bit of working farm going on there too, or?
No, not really. I mean, that's one of the things that I would love to see is you step back in time to an 1800s family farm. That would be awesome to see something like that. We're not there yet. Mm-hmm.
And
I don't know if we'll get there, but
was that the use of the property at the time and through the generations? Was it a family farm?
It was, yeah. Okay. There was farming that was done there, and they had tenant farmers on the property.
Oh, okay.
We have the cabin, which is where the tenant farmers lived. We have a great display in there that talks about tenant farming and this one family that lived there and did tenant farming at the time. So really kind of a part of Tennessee history that isn't really told a whole lot. There isn't a whole lot out there about tenant farming, right? And what that was and its purpose and how it was kind of this transition between slavery and complete freedom, or freedom to the point of where it is now, right? It was just kind of that you can stay here and we'll feed you and whatnot, but in return for you farming the land and things like that. So that was kind of the way that worked.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. I think that'd be fun to come see and explore and check out. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a nice little, and it's so peaceful back there, and it's all shaded. So it's quiet. It isn't one of the more popular areas of the park. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people just go back there and, they enjoy the quiet and they love the history and that part of it. So
yeah.
Nice. Well, let's dive into some of the exhibits and some of the animals that come across. I was browsing the website, saw some tiger cubs. Those are a new addition, right?
Yeah. They were born back in October, so they're older now. They're probably 60, 70 pounds now, which is a good size, but they're still young. They're still hopping all over the place, and they play with each other. There's 3 of them, and they hop all over the place and play with each other and whatnot. So a lot of fun to watch. Typically, when you go to see tigers or cats of any species, they sleep a lot. If you have cats at home, you already know this, right? They sleep all the time.
But they're fun to watch when they're active. Yeah.
Especially kittens, right? Young cats that find almost everything amazing and playful. They do the same thing, but they're like 70 pounds now. So they pull down huge stalks of bamboo because it looks like it'd be fun to play with, and they drag it around the exhibit, and then they jump on each other. They play in the water. They do all kinds of stuff. So it's a great exhibit to go and see right now.
That's cool. It's one of my favorite wild animals, I believe. The tiger. I grew up being a tiger. My mascot was a tiger. Grew up as a Meg's tiger.
Oh, yeah.
Now a Watertown tiger, and so I think that's cool. It's a cool animal.
They're amazing and just beautiful animals too. So they're fantastic. The Sumatran tiger is just a beautiful animal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the Red River hog piglets. You were talking about those.
That's right. Yeah. We had 3 Red River hog piglets born it was probably a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, and they're out on exhibit now. And of course, they're the same. They kind of explore all over the exhibit, and they at first weren't wandering too far away from their mother, but the more they get used to it, the more they go out and explore different things. So yeah, we have some piglet babies that you can go see, some Red River hog piglet babies.
Those are fun. Yeah, cool. Well, what's something else that stands out other than those? Those are kind of the new things, but what's something kind of a staple that's been there a while that folks like to come out and see?
One of the more popular exhibits there is the kangaroo kickabout. And this is the area where people can walk into the kangaroo exhibit, right? Yeah. And you have to stay on a pathway. The people have to stay on a paved pathway, and the kangaroos pretty much go wherever they want. And you can pet them if you can reach them from the pathway. But if they're off in the grass sleeping, as one does, you can't touch them. But if some of them love to be petted, and they'll just come up and just lay right down on the sidewalk and just let people come up and just kind of pet them. They just kind of like that tactile environment. Others don't care for it as much. So it just kind of depends on the individual.
If they offer themselves up, then we're good. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, and a lot of people love that. They love to be able to pet a kangaroo, which is fantastic. People that visit here from Australia look at that and go, they're deer. Because in Australia they're like our deer, that kind of thing. But people around here love to be able to do that. Any kind of experience where you can get up close to an animal tends to be popular for people, right? We have a lorikeet landing area where you can go and feed lorikeets, which are Australian parrots, little beautiful rainbow-colored parakeets that you can feed, and they'll land on your shoulder and hands and things like that. They'll make a nest out of your hair, that kind of stuff. So that's fun to go into. Critter Encounters, which is our petting zoo, has goats in there. There's also some alpaca that's in there. That's a nice experience. And the zoo we kind of pride ourselves in creating these experiences that you don't normally get to see when you go to a zoo. Some of this is taking some of our animals that we don't have an exhibit for, taking them out on the pathways and, letting people get up close and see what's going on. And that can be sloths and tamanduas. We have an aardvark that's leash trained that will walk around on a leash sometimes. Lots of snakes and reptiles and bugs and spiders, big tarantulas and things like that you can pull out. And people are fascinated to kind of stand there and see that close up. So there's that kind of experience. And then I guess the last thing I'll mention is really kind of unique for Nashville is we have animal exhibits in some of the bathrooms, some of the human bathrooms. We have animal exhibits. So if you're in Entry Village and you go into the men's room, we have a bowling python snake exhibit above the urinals.
So instead of reading a commercial about something, you're going to see a snake.
Instead of reading about the Bales bondsman, ad above the urinal, you get to actually look at snakes. And I always tell people when men go to the bathroom, it's eyes forward, business as usual.
Exactly.
No talking. Right? You guys know how you never talk. Well, you go into this thing and there's whole conversations going on at the urinal, right? We are breaking down communication barriers at the Nashville Zoo just by putting that up. The other one for the women is we have a floor-to-ceiling display of cotton-top tamarins in the women's room where the Andean bear exhibit is. So you have to be sure to stop in there. Women to stop in there. But men don't get to go in there, but women can go in and see the cotton-top tamarin exhibits. And men are, complaining that, they get snakes, and the women get little monkeys, and, we just tell them to stop whining.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah,
I think I remember seeing the snake. I think I visited and saw the snakes.
Right. Yeah, I've had people email me and say, almost gave me a heart attack, and I don't appreciate that. So
That's pretty innovative there.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. I think that's going to be kind of our mantra moving forward as we expand out the park is when we build bathrooms, we're going to put exhibits in the bathrooms.
Nice.
It just seems to be kind of our calling card at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very cool. So it kind of leads me to a Backstage Pass. Y'all have opportunities to kind of get behind the scenes and
We do,
check
yeah.
things out. Yeah.
Yeah, there are several. Right now, you can't see giraffes on exhibit right now because we're undergoing some major construction for a new area called Leopard Forest, and we can talk about that in a minute. So giraffes are not on exhibit, but you can go back behind the scenes during the Backstage Pass program. You can feed them and get to know a little bit about them.
Oh, cool.
We also have a behind the scenes area where you can go up and scratch and pet a rhino. We have a greeting room where you can meet a sloth, an aardvark. We have giant anteaters. We have the largest collection of giant anteaters in the country.
Wow.
We don't have an exhibit for them, mainly because we haven't been able to produce the funding to create one or the location of where we're going to put it and what it's
Gotcha.
going to look like. But we have this huge collection, and we do breed them at a facility that's behind the scenes. So the only way you can see them is to go to the Backstage Pass program, and then we'll let you feed them. And
Cool.
we have one of these, the yard beers that you used to buy when you get on to like Daytona Beach, and they have the yard drink, and it comes in a really tall plastic
Yeah,
glass, and there's usually like an opening at the bottom, and then the top looks like a trumpet, and you drink out of it. Well, we have those, and we put yogurt down on the bottom. We let the giant anteater eat out of that because they have this long, sticky tongue
Yeah.
that they would normally stick into a termite mound, and then termites get stuck on the tongue and they pull. That's how they eat.
Right.
So we would feed it yogurt and you can watch it, with its tongue just go all the way down this
Oh, wow.
yard thing and scoop up the yogurt.
That's cool.
And eat. And it's a fascinating process to watch, but you have to be on the Backstage Pass program to see that.
Sounds like we need to sign up, Don.
I know.
Yeah.
Get us
Am
some
I
tickets.
selling it? Yeah.
Hey, now, I know the Backstage Pass is an option, but then there's also a huge plate glass window just outside the operating room at the hospital, right?
That's right. Yeah. The hospital is new. The vet center, HCA Healthcare Veterinary Center, is new. It opened up in 2020, I think.
Okay.
And the purpose of it was to not only expand the size of the hospital. The one we had before was about the size of this room. So we needed a much bigger hospital, but the bigger point was we wanted to bring animal care out front and center to the public. We wanted to show the public, this is how we care for these animals. This is what we do to make sure that they stay healthy. And that includes annual checkups. It includes operations. It includes all different kinds of stuff that we do. So we created this hospital where you can actually look into the treatment rooms and see what's going on.
Right.
Just a couple of weeks ago, we had our male tiger in there. They actually anesthetized the tiger and brought it in on a big table out there, pulled it right up in front of the audience and kind of worked on him and just did his annual workup, to make sure that he was healthy and everything was good before putting him back where he belonged.
How neat is that?
Yeah.
It's
That all takes place right out in front of the public.
And there's screens out there that pipe that, and I was impressed with being a camera guy.
Yeah.
The overhead camera can zoom way in. I mean, if they're doing a very intricate operation procedure, whatever, you're going to see it.
Yeah.
screen
It's
there.
it's a giant light that you usually see in the operating room that hovers overhead, and they kind of position it so it's bright. Well, right in the center of that light is a camera that shows right down onto whatever it is it's pointing at. It's just a matter of the vet team being able to focus that in and dial it in to make sure it's on, make sure the monitor's on so the people can see it.
Uh-huh.
And the other thing is to make sure they're not standing with their back to the window. It's almost like we had to teach the veterinary team about stage presence, right?
Yeah.
Almost like,
Okay.
we're going to take you through drama 101.
I can see
Just so you understand your stage presence when you're out there, because people are watching you all the time. So you have to kind of stand there with your face towards them and, that kind of thing.
not have your back in the way.
Right,
So-
yeah. And we usually have an interpreter out there that's kind of explaining what's happening and can answer questions. The vet will come out, oftentimes will come out after the procedure and answer any questions that people have about what was going on in there and that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's very cool. And that's all part of the just regular admission, or is that part of the,
yeah, that's just part of the day up there. You need to check. We have a Twitter account for that, a X account for that
X,
you can follow that kind of shows you, what's happening, kind of the schedule, because a lot of times that changes pretty periodically about what's happening for the day. So it's hard to really schedule anything too far in advance.
Sure.
But there is an X account that you can go and read about that and figure out what's going up there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, while we're on that, do you want to, what's your hours of operation? How do you find information about tickets and things like that?
Everything's at NashvilleZoo.org.
There you go.
We're a nonprofit organization, so we get that org designation at the end of the website. And that's where you go to find everything. We're open right now. We're open every day from 9 to 6.
Okay.
We'll go to fall hours mid-October. We'll switch back to the 9 to 4 schedule, and then we'll run that through mid-March and go back to 9 to 6. And we're only closed on Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, and New Year's Day, although the event that the popular lantern event that we have out there during the holidays is open on all of those days.
Awesome.
So, yeah, we're open even on the evenings on those days.
Well, we're crunching on time here, and I had that on my list to talk about with some of the special events going on. I've been to the light show, the lantern show.
Right.
That's
Illumination.
Yeah, Illuminations. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And, any other special events that's going on out there that you'd like to highlight today? Or
Well, absolutely. We have our big fundraiser, our big annual fundraisers in September. It's on September 13th. It's called Sunset Safari, and it's a culinary adventure, right? So you come to the zoo, and there's 40 restaurants or something that have set up, and they have all these little treats and samples that you can take, and you kind of graze your way on the tables as you migrate through the zoo, right? It's kind of that kind of thing as you go. Yeah, like wildebeest, you eat, you travel, you
eat some more.
you trek. You're right. Yeah, you know how it goes. Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's bars, there's entertainment, there's all kinds of stuff that's happening out there. So that's the big one that's coming up for us. We have a Hispanic Heritage Festival that's also in September. Boo at the Zoo's coming up in October.
Yeah,
That's a popular event, and I think it's running like 20 nights or something this year. So
Our producer Todd's told us about that one.
yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. I get the incredible job of being the magical talking pumpkin.
Okay.
At the Halloween event. Yeah, which is an absolute delight when you're talking to 3-year-olds who truly believe that you're real, and 8-year-olds who are convinced that you are not real but can't prove how you are not real. Right? That's good too.
Gonna have to come out and check that one out.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Well, the zoo's been a great partner with us as an agency too, on a couple of species in particular. I know we had talked about the hellbender.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we do a Hellbender Head Start program. We'll go out and retrieve eggs. Hellbenders, if anybody, for whoever doesn't know, is a giant salamander.
Yeah.
Snot otter is the other common name for it. And it's found in rivers around Tennessee. And so we'll go out and we'll find eggs. We'll take like half of the clutch of eggs, bring them back, hatch them, and then raise them for a little while, and then re-release them back into the wild.
Right.
Just kind of give them that head start to get back into the river.
Right.
Yeah, that's very cool. We went out and got to see some of the facility and did a show a few years ago.
Yeah,
now.
about 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while. We'll have to come back out and do another one.
To see all the raising that we do. They're all in various ages of development right before we let them go.
Right.
Yeah, and the reason why is if you go out into the wild and look into the rivers, you can't find baby hellbenders or even juvenile hellbenders. They're all adults, right? And there's a reason behind that. There's something wrong with the system. So the Head Start program at least gets them to that stage where we can keep the population feeding in till we can figure out how to clean it up, how to make it safe for them again.
Yep.
Very cool. Well, we've covered a lot today, and there's so much more we could cover. We're going to run out of time, but thank you for coming out, and we'll have to do this again and maybe visit at the zoo and do a show or two.
I think we definitely need to move our stuff over there.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are welcome to
All
come out
right.
and-
Awesome. So that'll be fun. Thank you, Jim, for being here. NashvilleZoo.org.
Yep, that's where you go for everything.
Go check it out. Go visit the zoo and see what all they have going on there. Keep coming back to Tennessee WildCast. Keep watching. Keep listening. And we'll see you next time.
Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram. Join us as we celebrate 75 years of conservation in our great state. You can invest in Tennessee's wildlife future by purchasing a license at GoOutdoorsTennessee.com. That's GoOutdoorsTennessee.com.